one of the main reasons why even people who don't like Princess of Pahlavi are now on Princess of Pahlavi's side is because of the understanding that that's the only thing that cannot be used by the Islamic Republic. That is, Princess of Pahlavi is not just our leader; it's also a shield against everything we hate, and yeah, and every form of infiltration. It cannot be misused, right? So when it's pro Pahlavi, I mean, the thing is that Pahlavi just means that everything that the Islamic Republic stands for, Pahlavi is against. So for the Islamic Republic to use some sort of false source of opposition, it needs to maintain some of its elements while trying to reform on some other things, right? But it knows that it cannot do that with Pahlavi ever, because Pahlavi is basically takes the Islamic Republic and removes it from its roots. And that understanding is the reason why the Islamic Republic tries to come up with any form of opposition leader that is not Pahlavi, going as far as even chanting Zan Zindagi Azadi, woman life freedom, from the Islamic Republic. They are because they're willing to sell everything and do anything and change anything to survive, as long as it's not Pahlavi. So if it's Pahlavi, it's not any version of the Islamic Republic, right? Go on. Yeah.
It's not that I think that it's false. I'm saying, do we know that the Mullah regime is? I don't want the Mullah regime
Yeah.
to do to these brave Iranian protesters what they were doing during the
Right.
previous protests when they had people pretend to be protesters and lead them into ambushes. That's what I meant. Not that I believe that the
Yeah.
Iranians don't support Pahlavi. I just don't want them to become targets.
Right, right, yeah. So, okay, so that's a two separate things. Yeah, okay. So I understand. I'm just saying that I'm not just saying that for your sake. I'm just saying that for everyone's sake, right? So having false leader that take you to an ambush is separate from the protest being organic, because the protest could start organically, and then false leaders will could infiltrate and direct the population into a place that they shouldn't be, while the protests began organically. So those are an organic protest could still be misdirected. So you need to be careful about that, even if the protest is organic, right? When it comes to U.S. strikes, my understanding is that this actually helps, because it's really so when it comes to the cost of this war for the Trump administration, everybody calculates the cost from a military perspective, and they forget about the political benefits and cost of the war, right? So from a political perspective, every politician has some limited political capital that they could use, and if they use it too much, then they have to stop doing what they're doing. In Usually that's what happens in democratic countries. You can only continue doing until there's some level of support for it. And if you lose support, then you have to stop. Even if you have the military capability for it, then you're forced to stop, right? So when it comes to in America, there are multiple different reasons why Americans, as taxpayers and voters, would support and or be against this war. The ways that you could gain support is talking about nuclear, talking about range of missiles, proxies, but also there are some Americans who genuinely care about Iranians and think, like, you know what, we want to be a country that goes. And so I'm not going to pretend that, like, oh yeah, America is going to come do another country a favor. But America is not just one thing with one opinion. America is filled with Americans with different opinions, and one thing that gives you political capital is the justification that this is the right thing to do, because the Iranian people are in a revolution, and it just makes sense to support freedom loving American allied people who are fighting for their freedom and being killed for it. It's easier to sell that politically locally at home, but that is easier if you are still in the revolution. If the understanding was that the revolution was happened early January and now it's over, then you're not going to have that political capital to say the Iranian people are in the middle of a revolution, they need our help, so let's go help them. The fact that the Iranian people came out now and show to the world that the revolution is alive and continues, gives a trump card to Trump when it comes to, his political ability to justify the fact that the revolution continues and the Iranian people need our help. Because a lot of people argued that President Trump missed an opportunity to go help the Iranian people early January, and now that the Iranian people are back home, that opportunity is missed because you can't really go and help them anymore because people will say that there's no revolution anymore. So these students coming out in these numbers and continue to the revolution shows that no, the revolution didn't go anywhere. And one reason why I know that this analysis is correct is because this is also the Islamic Republic's analysis, and they wouldn't be so desperate trying to show the world that the revolution has stopped and everything is back to normal if this wasn't important. So the fact that the Islamic Republic is desperately trying to show to the rest of the world that this was a temporary short thing, it's now over, go home, there's nothing to see here, shows that it's very important to show to the world that the revolution is alive and continues, right? When it comes to using these people as human shield, the way that the Islamic Republic will probably use people as human shields is by having military assets in close to people where people live. So this university presence right now on campuses, this is not going to be able to use them as human shields because this is university campuses and there's no military assets there, and it doesn't make sense for Israel and United States to just bomb the campuses. But the human shield fear, like concern, is a right concern to have. And the way that's going to work is moving military assets and also suppressing forces and bases of operations to close to hospitals, highly populated places, and especially schools, because we've seen the Islamic Republic MTS base of operations and using schools now as a base of operation just to use that as a cover and a shield. Did you want to add anything to that, Jeffrey?
Yeah. One of the things that I sent up a chain, and the United States is something the United States used in response to, dictatorial regimes trying to leverage the urban shield raid, putting their assets amongst non-combatants in the hopes of turning any kind of tactical success into a strategic soft power failure. And that was use of inert munitions, right? They removed the explosives, they put in concrete, and you essentially turn a smart bomb into like a supersonic lawn dart. We did that both in the first and second Gulf War. We were able to sit there and flatten Iraqi tanks, even though they placed them next to non-combatants, and it reduced the collateral damage significantly because there's no concentric rings of lethality. So you have this accuracy, right? We'll put warheads right on foreheads. That said, there's no explosion. It's just you're getting hit with a 2,000-pound rock at like 600 miles an hour. So I'm just asking. I was asking the questions I was, and you did a fantastic job to steelman the argument and pre-bunk some of the dumb shit that's pushed by non-interventionists to try and offset us not striking the mullahs. I mean, you did a fantastic job, brother.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Before we move on, can you clarify for me, Armin, the Witkoff topic? Do you want that in order in the list? That's just what we'll move on to next after questions here, or save it to the. Okay.
Yeah, that's good because I do want to share some videos from Witkoff before we talk about it, so that people have some context regarding what's happening.
So Ali and Daniel Dome both raised their hands. So Ali, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I just have a quick question in regards to the university protests. And Jeffrey kind of took a little bit of my thunder of what I was going to ask, but that's okay. I'm going to change my question just a little bit. One thing I noticed in the university protests, in some of the videos that you shared on Iran Revolution Live and in other places too, I've seen this, is there's really not a presence of any type of security on any of these protests, except for a video that not a video, but some photos I saw recently. I saw where they had riot gear on and riot police that were out. And you mentioned on Iran Revolution Live, but you couldn't play the video, that there was tear gas shot at Tehran University's students, right? So my question is why aren't they? I guess my question is, okay, they had opportunity to use tear gas and proper use of security in previous protests. Is it so if they go back to their usual, let's bring the militias from various different countries in and shoot up the students. Would that be like the last straw for them? It's over. Do they, or is this kind of like a way of them trying to build a propaganda machine? Say, hey, we tried it the normal civil way, and it didn't work.
So first, let me show the video because now I have the video of the tear gas.
Thank you, Armin.
You're welcome. So, and then I need a clarification regarding the question of, let me see if I understand it well. So, it's like, oh yeah. By the way, guys, this is my, you see these doors? I used to walk through them every single day. This is my university. This is the famous gates of Tehran University. I used to go through this. All right, so that's the tear gas that they use. So is your question is that why don't they just come out and just shoot everybody? Is that your question? Like, why do they use tear gas at first? Like, why don't?
Let me just clarify just a little bit. I'm sorry, Armin. I apologize. The reason I'm asking.
Why are you apologizing?
The reason I'm asking is it got reported the other day. I want to say it was within the last 24 hours that they opened fire on some non-student protesters in one of the cities. I'm wondering, well, why haven't they done that here? Is it because they're students and it would look so bad to mess up their negotiation? Or is it more of, hey, we know the regime is winning an Oscar at being a victim because that's what they try to do with their propaganda machine. We know they try to do that over and over again. Is this just more of that? Because kind of what Jeffrey was stating is, these students can be led into a trap. I'm kind of on the same thing. Like, what kind of game is the regime playing with these Visiji people? You know what I'm saying? That's really what my question is.
So the regime starts shooting into crowds and people when they are desperate and very scared. They don't just start with shooting into people. Okay, every time you see them going in and grabbing the bigger guns and shooting into crowds, it means that they're terrified and they think that if they don't do this, this could be it. Okay, they would rather use other means if they think that this might not actually to turn into something really, really dangerous. It doesn't make any sense for them to because here's the thing, every time you shoot people, you're doing two things. You're getting more international costs, but more importantly, the chant هر یه نفر کشته شه هزار نفر پشته شه, which means for everyone who dies, there's 1,000 people behind him. That's not just a chant. The Islamic Republic has realized that that's actually what happens in reality, right? So when they shoot people, this is a temporary solution, and the Islamic Republic knows that by killing people, they're going to get more people out eventually. This has been tried again and again and again, and it has been proven that shooting people doesn't mean that they're going to think that, okay, they're shooting at us, so let's not do this. In fact, what it does, it convinces more people that this regime must go. So shooting people has caused more people who we call like a silent, we call them khakestari, which means the gray people, the people who are not politically active, the people who are just living their lives and not anti-regime because they just want to live, they just want to continue living. We call them the gray people. So when the regime kills people, it turns those people into revolutionaries, right? So this is the reason why the Islamic Republic only uses shooting into people in moments of desperation, because if they think that they're on a cliff and they're about to die, they're like, okay, this might bite us in the ass in the long term, but there is not going to be a long term if we don't do this right now, because we're not going to be here anyways. So they know that the long-term cost is big, but given that this is escalating to the point that if we don't do something, we're not going to be around anyways, they shoot inside people, right? They shoot people in masses. But they rather not do that because they know it's not effective. So they try to use other means if they can, and if they're desperate and scared and terrified, then they shoot. And the shooting is actually a sign of their weakness. A lot of people interpret the shooting as a sign of them showing their strength, but it's actually a sign of their desperation and fear. Does that answer your question, Ali?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Armin.
No, thank you. Great questions, by the way, Ali.
Okay, next we have Daniel Dome. And Samantha, can you confirm for me your hand up? Is that in regard to the university? Or okay, beautiful. So next is Daniel Dome.
So just a question on the matter of the universities, like in the video where there was more protesters rather than the Basiji, why didn't the protesters just like jumped on those from the Basiji and just tore them apart? Like I don't know, I don't understand this.
Well,
Like,
because that's not what they do. Why didn't they just tear them apart? Like with what? With their bare hands? Like just go like beat
no,
them
like
up?
yeah, like I don't know, like I thought they are like in the condition of like fucking them up. Sorry for my pardon, my friends.
I don't. I mean, I guess that they well, my observation is that they only do that when the other side is doing the same thing and they're defending themselves, right? I only notice Iranian people getting violent when when violence is being inflicted upon them, and they do violence not for the sake of being violent. They do violence because the other side is killing them, so they kill to defend. Like it's a self-defense mechanism. It's not like, oh, like if somebody is chanting there against them and coming out and saying, like, they're not going to go kill them because they're chanting. It's usually a response. They only do violence as a response to violence. So when the other side is shooting, when the other side is killing, then they feel justified to do the same thing. But I haven't well, sometimes it happens. I've seen sometimes some people, because they consider these people to have be part of the armed forces that kill people anyways when they get the opportunity, they go around and like maybe neutralize the threat in different ways. That happens sometimes, and some people do that. And at some point this might actually escalate and you will see more of that, but it's not as common. It's not as common for you to just see a mullah or a basiji and just go and you know do as you described. Usually they only do violence when as a response to violence rather than starting violence. That's what you observe usually, right? Which is actually, you know what, Daniel, actually your observation shows how how much the Islamic Republic lies, right? Because it's you can see that they don't start violence. It's the Islamic Republic that always starts the violence, and the Iranian people are the ones who respond.
No,
It seems like you're disappointed. It seems like you want them to actually go beat the shit out of them. Like that's what you want.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just too much
but
influenced from what was
it
in
might be a trap, though. It might be. You've been influenced by what? Sorry, go on.
like well in 2014 in Ukraine when they like took off the previous regime that tried to set up dictatorship. Like it all started like super calm and peaceful protests, but as soon as the regime in Ukraine took the guns and started shooting students, like they went crazy. They took all they could take and just turned
Were they
like
armed?
weaponized.
Were they armed?
They wasn't originally armed, but they just took the arms out of the soldiers.
Yeah,
Okay.
YouTube is very sensitive about that. So that's not possible in Iran. So because the Islamic Republic knows many Iranians. Can you mute your mic for a sec? Well, okay. So because the Islamic Republic knows that many Iranian people want to get armed, their weaponry is very, very secure. So you cannot just storm into the armory and just take the weapons. This is not possible, right? It's very heavily secured, right? So your strategy might actually be what the Islamic Republic wants the students to do, and this might be a trap. Okay, it might be that they're sending the unarmed Basijis to be beaten up so that they could bring in the heavy weapons. Okay, and it's actually wise of the university students not to give in to that, because if they escalate to that level, then they're not armed, they have no weapons, and the other side is now justified in their, international, they could just they these videos, by the way, imagine how that video works on an internet, how much the Islamic Republic would love a video like that, right? To have a whole bunch of Pahlavi chanting university students ganging up on a few people and beating them up, right? That would work wonders for the Islamic Republic. And then after that, they will use that video to show everywhere and then bring the big guns and then shoot into people and be like, well, look, like every country has to maintain law and order. Look at these violent barbarians, right? Like, obviously, we have to do this. And I know like the rest of the world might not be convinced, but you know who would be convinced? Their own followers. Because right now, some of their followers are thinking like, are we the baddies? Are we the baddies? We might be the baddies, right? We might be the evil ones, right? So some regime supporters might be like, did we really kill like 40,000 of our citizens? Like they're telling us we didn't, but maybe we did. They're telling us it was Mossad agents, but some of them are skeptical. Like some of them are thinking that if we did that, like I don't want to be on this side. So the Islamic Republic needs to keep these people. They really need to keep these people on their side. If they go from, I don't know, 3% to 2.5% support, that's like significant. That might look like just 0.5%, but from the 3% that they have, that's a significant percentage of the entire 3% that they had, right? So they're like, yeah, we cannot lose that. That's the number one thing that the Islamic Republic fears the most, of losing that tiny little support that they have. They fear that more than American attacks. They fear that more than Israeli attacks. They fear that more than even the millions of Iranian people in the streets. They fear losing that base support, because that's how they will be toppled. That's how we be toppled, when they lose their own supporters and the people who are working for them. So that video of a whole bunch of university students who were chanting Pahlavi will return just a few seconds ago, and then ganging up on like a poor little victim Basiji. Oh my God, look at this! Like this Basiji person being ganged up by these university students. That is like, oh my God, we're the victim, bringing in the big guns. We need law and order. Okay, so they might have been sent there to be beaten up by the Islamic Republic. So this could have been a trap.
Okay, so you basically say it's reverse psychology, like reverse on reverse psychology.
Right, right. I think this is what we call defy mashru. So this is what Princess of Pahlavi supports. You use violence in self defense. That's when you use violence. Okay. But again, whatever happens on the streets is probably the wisest thing to do. Okay. Because me and you are speaking here. We're speaking from miles away. We're not in the field. We're not there. You have to understand that when you are there on the ground, there's so many little informations and the Iranian people have shown to be very politically savvy, and they're very good at detecting traps. They're very good at detecting when a false leader is being forced upon them. So they're very good at gathering the information live, when they're there on the ground, and reacting accordingly, coming up with the most effective strategies. Sometimes the Islamic Republic does something clever as well, and uses might misguide them, but every time they do, the Iranian people, they learn and they readjust and they get better every time. But for us, coming up with a strategy from here, from a safe place, is really not going to be as effective as what they recognize as the most effective thing to do while they're there on the ground. It's the wisdom of the crown happening and evolving in real time, in the field, in the streets.
Yeah, you said that like the university students in Iran are more leftist than the general population, but still like pro Pahlavi. What about the professors? Because I know like in the West, professors tend to be like sometimes just a little bit more leftist than the students. So I'm like, where do they stand?
Honestly, I don't know. And when I was in Tehran University myself, I was in STEM, right? So usually when you see leftist university students, that's mostly in the, you know, humanities, So I was studying molecular biology, so we didn't have any of that in my area. So Samantha, when I don't know something, I try not to make stuff up. Okay, it's right. I know this about the students that are very pro Pahlavi. So given that I haven't seen any information regarding university students, I'm gonna just say I don't know. So, but that's a good question. I would like to know. I'll ask. So maybe I could have a better information for you next time you ask me that. But I don't know. Good question though. Sorry,
Okay,
I didn't
next.
have an answer.
We'll give you a few passes, Armin. You usually know everything.
Okay.
Okay,
I
next we
could
have
make it up.
Nare.
No, Ray.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to the current topic, Armin, when you said about delayed shootings or why they're not shooting and all of that. I think the propaganda machine is so rotten to the core that given the current situation, they can even use this to their advantage, considering that Trump publicly announced massacre of over 30,000 people, and then IRGC came and said, well, show us the evidence. So considering all of that, I think I wouldn't be surprised if IRGC next week comes and says, look, we have open protests and we're not doing anything. So that's another aspect of it that could happen, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point. They have done that. So they shoot at people, and every time they don't shoot, they use the footage to say like, "Hey, look, we're not shooting. So you're lying. We don't shoot. Look."
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, exactly. It's like somebody who beats his wife, and say like, "Stop beating your wife." Or like, "Look, I'm not beating my wife right now, so you're lying. Look, she's standing right next to me, and I'm not beating her. So it can't
Yeah.
be true."
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we should probably expect something like that pretty soon.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you're right. That's a good point, Narret. Well put.
Okay, next we have Johan, and then we are ready for our Witkoff segment.
Witkoff.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to say something about the riot police, like the normal geared riot police that we haven't really seen before. But Armin and Nora already covered everything brilliantly. I just wanted to add one thing, that there might be a lot of people within the police and security forces that would like to that are dissenting, but not openly. They might want to defect, but being worried about their families, so it's not an easy thing to do for some people at least. And I guess they just want to like be in the middle. They're not following orders like shooting at people, but maybe they're like, yeah, okay, I can be a riot police. Yeah, I can do that. Like, and then they go out in the street and they just get ripped to pieces by this crowd, understandably. But they would absolutely use that in the aftermath and in the propaganda and everything. And I just wanted to side with you there that it would be a horrible idea to attack normal riot police. Like, you know.
I mean, to that point, the Islamic Republic was so desperate to show some victims on their own side that they went and they actually shot at their own people, right? So you can see how much they need that they went and had protesters, fake protesters, gave them guns and shot. The Islamic Republic had people as fake protesters shooting and killing their own armed forces to be able to convince the rest of the armed forces to shoot into the crowds, which is also a confirmation that some of their armed forces were not willing to shoot into the crowds. Like, even though they were working for the Islamic Republic, they needed convincing by killing them as fake protesters, right? So you can see that so many people within the Islamic Republic still need, even though they are within the Islamic Republic, they need convincing to be able to shoot at people. They need the violence, right? We have 10 out of 10 Durka people and 6 out of 10 Durka people, okay? So the 10 out of 10 Durka shoots at the 6 Durka out of 10 Durka people to convince them to shoot into the people. Like, even just because you're an Islamist doesn't mean you're all the way compared to like an Islamist. Like you could be an Islamist but not like ISIS Islamist. Okay, it takes a special kind of person to be able to just grab a gun and shoot into the masses of unarmed civilians. Some people who are Islamists who still support the Islamic Republic, they need to feel like, oh my God, all of these people are terrorists. Some of them need drugs, and they use drugs. Some of these soldiers will not do this unless they're on drugs, and we know based on credible reports that they put them on drugs so that they shoot into the crowds of people without thinking about it. Like a lot of them can't. A lot of them can't. Even though they believe, like, oh yeah, I'm loyal to the Islamic Republic. When you give them a gun and say shoot at these people, they look at those people and they can't pull the trigger. This is why the Islamic Republic had to bring foreign militia. They had to bring the Hashd Shabi from Iraq, Fatimiyun from Afghanistan, and Zainabian from Pakistan, because there were many people within their own armed forces that were like, yeah, I can't. Like, I can't shoot at my fellow Iranians. Which is also a good sign, means that the Islamic Republic is a lot more fragile than many people realize. I mean, the fact that they have to use these measures, if you were stable, you wouldn't be this desperate to use this much violence. So all of this violence by the Islamic Republic is a sign of desperation, and the desperation is a sign of fragility, and the fragility is a sign of the fall of the Islamic Republic coming sooner rather than later. I think Jeffrey wanted to
Okay,
add to that.
we
No?
had Jeffrey a hand.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to share this because of the emotional underpinning of what Daniel said. I very much appreciated that. I can tell it bothers you, man. I can tell it. I can see it on your face, and that says something very beautiful about who you are and the beauty of Ukrainians in general. It reminds you watching those kids getting fucked up in Tehran is reminding you of the brutality visited on Ukrainian citizens by Putin's backed insurgents in Donbass and Donetsk. The experience you suffered, the experience suffered by brave Ukrainians and your courageous sharing of it is of it of it operation is very fitting here. Specifically, the model demonstrated by Ukraine's global diaspora, and this goes to Armin's point, specifically efforts outside of Ukraine to support Ukraine's efforts to defend itself from Putin's predation and illegal war of aggression. Within the context of the current battle going on inside Iran, it is us outside of Iran that has to be the arms for brave Iranian protesters, brother. And that has to follow a very specific sequence to be legal and operationally sustainable. And while I won't go into all the specifics, I will say that sequence is very far along in its process.
Witkoff just came out and said something very, very significant. We have been talking about that is it has been very likely for a while that Prince Reza Pahlavi and his team is in direct talks with the Trump administration. Okay. We didn't have any evidence for it, but it just didn't make any sense that this was not happening. And now we have evidence for it because of what Witkoff just came out and said. And the reason why this is very significant is because it gives Prince Reza Pahlavi a lot more credibility. And I'll show you a video from a Marxist Iranian that was basically repeating something on Iran International that many Marxist Iranians and anti-Pahlavi Iranians believe. And this is why gives a lot of Iranian a lot of hope. And it also shows that the Trump administration understands and is investing in the Prince Reza Pahlavi's ability to mobilize and direct the Iranian people when it's required. Because, guys, remember in the 12-day war, there were a lot of people, a lot of non-Iranians that were attacking Iranians. That why didn't you show up? Like, where were you? Israel came out and attacked, and you didn't came into the streets when you were supposed to. First of all, now that we saw Iranians coming into the streets in the millions, it shows that, because a lot of people are like, oh, maybe Iranian people are lazy, they want other people to come do a revolution for them, and people shut all of that nonsense up completely by coming out and doing the greatest sacrifice people could do for their country, for the freedom of the country ever, right? But it also shows that as like Israel and United States cannot guide and manage and lead the Iranian people, it's Princess of Pahlavi that could do that, right? And it doesn't even make sense, didn't even make sense for the Iranian people to come out in the 12-day war, given that Israel itself told Iranians to evacuate Tehran, like evacuate Iran or stay and do protests. Like that doesn't make sense. That's a contradiction, right? But the Trump administration being in touch with Princess of Pahlavi and communicating also is completely in line with my understanding that the United States strategy and Israel's strategy could not exclude basically Princess of Pahlavi, given that that's the only way to do regime change, given that no amount of aerial bombardment is going to do regime change. I don't think this is an exaggeration to say that the greatest weapon against Islamic Republic is not the American Navy, is not the USS Abraham Lincoln, it's not the Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group. It's Princess of Pahlavi, right? Because America doesn't have the political capital to put troops on the ground inside Iran, and Israel doesn't have enough troops to put inside, like put troops on the ground inside Iran. Iran is too big and it's too far away from Israel. It's not Lebanon, it's not Syria, it's not Gaza. Israel doesn't have the political. Israel has a really powerful air force. It doesn't have troops on the ground to go and do regime change in Iran. And United States does have enough troops to put on the ground to do regime change in Iran, but doesn't have enough political capital to do such a thing. So the only boots on the ground are the Iranian people. And anybody who wants to do regime change in Iran needs to do it with the, relying on the Iranian people doing regime change. Nobody else could do it. Nobody could do regime change. You could support the Iranian people, but you can't do regime change for them. They have to do the regime change. Nobody else could do it. And if you want to help the Iranian people do regime change after you remove some of their obstacles in their way, the only person that could direct them, mobilize them, amplify their voices to themselves, and gives them direction is Princess of Pahlavi. So if Israel's plan is to do regime change, and if America's plan is to do regime change, not being in touch with Princess of Pahlavi is lunacy. So based on that, I always said that I think they're definitely in touch and they're talking. And this video that just came out confirms it. Let me do an audio boost because somebody decided to record this using their camera. So the audio is very low. So the only way that I could show it to you is by doing an audio boost using this Chrome browser. And then let's listen to it.
Well, there's that pressure. There's also pressure coming from within Iran, from their own people. Obviously, we've seen these major protests going on within the country. The exiled crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, has also laid out pretty clear steps as to how a transition of power might occur over there in his eyes. Has he been part of any of this? Have you guys had any conversations with him?
Well, I've met him at the direction of the president, and I actually,
Okay, this is very important. I met him at the direction of the president. So that's a very big confirmation that President Trump ordered Witkoff to meet with Princess of Pahlavi. This is very significant
There in
information.
his eyes. Has he been part of any of this? Have you guys had any conversations with him?
well, I've met him at the direction of the president, and I actually, it's public, it's out there. I think he's strong for his country, cares about his country, but this is going to be about President Trump's policies, not Mr. Pahlavi's policy.
So here he says, I'll tell you what my interpretation is, what he's saying here. He's saying this is about President Trump's policies, not Pahlavi's policy. What I think he's saying here is that we're not, the policies that we're talking about is America's policies, not internal Iranian people's policies. That's up to them. So when he says what this is about is President Trump's policies, means that we're talking about what America's. So one thing that I noticed Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and now Witkoff respecting, I think what's happening here is that they're trying to make sure that they are not acting like they're picking a leader for the Iranian people, right? So they're going to this war. They're in touch with Princess of Pahlavi. They respect him, as he said. He thinks that he's really good for the Iranian people. He's charismatic. He's very good for the Iranian people. He is very. Let me see what the words he used.
It's public. It's out there. I think he's strong for his country, cares about his country.
He's strong for his country, cares about his
But this
country.
is going to be about President Trump's policies, not Mr. Pahlavi's policies. I think the president is interested in hearing everyone's views. He has no pride of authorship, is maybe the best way for me to say it, which I greatly respect because he's open to new ideas and new ways of thinking.
So this is a confirmation that they're speaking. When it comes to the second part, my interpretation is that they're talking about the fact that they're not going to be involved in the policies of Princess of Pahlavi and what his policies are. They're going to focus, when it comes to the America's policies, they're going to be focusing on what they need to do for this attack or the negotiations, right? After the early January revolution, they tried to get him to admit he's a Marxist, he's anti-Pahlavi. They were trying to see if they could admit that Pahlavi has so much support. He was trying to, now a lot of, it's very interesting because these Marxists, they're anti-American, but they're so anti-Pahlavi that their way to attack Princess of Pahlavi now has turned into, well, Pahlavi is not doing a good job because he doesn't have the support of Americans, which shows how desperate they are. They're not saying he doesn't have the support of Iranians because that has been undeniable. But even though they themselves are anti-American, they're now saying that, oh, he's no good because if he was any good, he would have had the support of Americans. And I'm like, weren't you guys anti-American? Like, why is that now the way we measure? So watch
یعنی
this
شما
part.
نظر تحلیلی ببینید دولت ترامپ که الان به طور مشخص هست که خب نمیپذیره آقای پهلوی رو به عنوان نماینده. چرا نمیپذیره؟ حرف
So I say Trump will not accept Princess of Pahlavi as a leader.
منطقی میزنه. میگه آقا شما
And he's like, Trump is being reasonable. This is very weird because this guy is always anti-Trump.
نتونستی اتحاد ایجاد کنی در بقیه
Because you haven't been able to create unity among the Iranian
اپوزیسیون.
people.
نتونستی نشون بدی که همه اپوزیسیون پشت شما هست. حالا
You haven't shown that all of the opposition is behind you, which is again insanity because no political leader will ever have 100% support. But he says because you haven't shown that you have 100% support, you have no unity, and that's why Trump is not supporting.
پهلوی بگن در ایران اسم
He challenges him by saying like which politician ever has 100% support. And so I'm not going to play the rest. I just want to show that Witkoff message is now very significant because these anti-Pahlavi messages can now be destroyed with the fact that, okay, apparently President Trump had ordered Witkoff to meet with Princess of Pahlavi. So that is false. These anti-Pahlavi people were saying something that was false. Let me actually show you another video from the same meeting on the same interview on Fox with Witkoff. This is also very significant. Here, Steve Witkoff says the president is curious as to why the Islamic Republic hasn't capitulated. Why, under this pressure with the amount of naval power over there, haven't they come to us and said we don't want a weapon, which is very interesting because I could have explained this to you from the beginning that the reason why they would not do this is because, again, as I mentioned to you guys, the Islamic Republic is more afraid of their own followers leaving them and not supporting them. They are afraid of defection more than anything else. They're afraid of defection more than they're afraid of American and Israeli attacks. They're afraid of defection more than they're afraid of the millions of Iranian people in the streets protesting against them. So the reason why they don't capitulate, and we predicted that they won't do that, is because if they do so, they will lose the last remaining support that they have. So let's listen to this video.
I know that we have red lines here from the U.S. How about over with Iran?
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated. It's almost because he understands he's got plenty of alternatives. But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do, and yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
Well, there's that. I know.
So if they're curious, they could have talked to me because I would have explained this to them. Anyway, so that's what I have on Witkoff. So I'm curious. I'm now curious to see what you guys think.
Go ahead, Mr. Gary.
I'm sorry I'm laughing so hard here.
That's good.
Yeah. You know, everybody's got opinions, everybody has their views and everybody has their logic. I just I I shared something I think with the group from somebody who's been reaching out to me with some of the information that Jeff is probably or deeply aware of, but the the amount of firepower and the system of systems that is surrounding Iran right now, it's really not even fair. I mean, it's just not even fair. So most people are sitting there going, "Well, do we have enough boats? Do we have enough plan?" Please, really, just take a Xanax, calm down. Everything we need is there, and it's going to be used. It's not there for show. So I just hear people making political statements. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? It's because you don't have security clearance and you don't need to know. This is going to happen, and it's going to happen imminently. And I don't know when it's going to happen. Jeff doesn't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. And then when it happens, the point, Armin, and I've been hammering at this a bit, and I don't mean to be sounding like an ugly American, but the communication that needs to be going on right now between major cities and pockets of resistance against the current theocracy, that communication needs to be very robust because there is going to be a power vacuum. And yes, the Russians may put in people, the Afghanis may put in people, the Pakistanis may, everybody may put in people to create as much chaos and make it resemble Iraq as is possible. But it's not going to be Iraq. But the Iranian people, it's their mission to make sure this does not turn into every news service making it sound like this is Iraq and what a cluster, you know what it is. The Iranian people are in control of their destiny because the US is about to completely dismantle the theocracy, their military, their nuclear sites, the IRGC assets and their weapons. They're going to pick apart every single bit of it, and the Iranian people will need to come in a unified fashion, not carrying Prince Pahlavi on their shoulders necessarily, because you don't want him assassinated in the first 10 minutes of the fall of the government. There needs to be a demonstration from the peoples of Iran that they are in communication with each other, that they see a common path forward, and let's have these people from the diaspora come in, help us out, or take part in this. But this is going to be a little bit messy, and there's no getting around it. It just is. But everything that this group is doing with these recordings and other groups like it, as well as all the people with the Starlink setups and the sat phones, everybody, if they're singing from the same sheet of music, which is let's get rid of the bad guys, let's make sure that we capture as many of the bad guys and put them into temporary holding pens as possible, and then do this in an orderly and quote civilized fashion, then the good things can start to happen. I can't wait for this to happen, but at the same time, once it happens, it's happening, and that's a huge responsibility. And I'm sorry if this sounds like rambling, but this is going to happen. The people on the ground in Iran need to be ready for this, and they need to be communicating positively with each other to make sure that as they force the regime into that Tehran to Semran to Mashhad corridor and then get rid of them or put them into a zoo somewhere, this has to happen in a somewhat orderly fashion, and it will not be dictated by the President of the United States. It will not be dictated by any outside entity. And that's what Mr. Witkoff is saying, is that we're not going to tell the Iranian people how this is going to play out. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. This is Iran, and we have greater respect for the people of Iran.
No, that was good. That was a good rant. Please rant more. Before we go to, I think Jeffrey wants to add something to this, but before we go to that, Foreign Minister Araqchi, the foreign
Yes.
minister of the Islamic what?
Yes, you'll notice that he did not get the gold medal. Maybe he got the bronze medal, but Mr. Larijani got the gold medal this morning.
Oh. Oh
And
yeah, actually, I wasn't gonna. I'm so glad you reminded me of that. Like,
yeah,
actually, I
yeah,
was gonna say something, but what you're saying is more important. Can you actually tell people what you're talking about? Because I have the
yeah,
list
yeah.
here. Okay,
So do
go
you
on.
guys remember a country called Venezuela?
Hmm.
Yeah? You
Yeah.
do remember
Okay. Okay.
Venezuela? So right
Yes.
about the time that Venezuela's president, was brought to, I don't know if it's Brooklyn or Manhattan, his new residence, something else went on. And Mr. Aragchi, his wife, and their young children all went to Beirut for a vacation. Now, right around that time, the US, for the first time publicly announced, was able to unencrypt the blockchain, and they removed about $300 billion in assets from Iranian crypto accounts. Maybe that has something to do with the banking systems between Iran and Venezuela and Turkey and Beirut. Maybe. Maybe it has something to do with that. So, Mr. Aragchi, since that moment that he has been in Beirut with his wife and children, and all that Iranian crypto money disappeared into the US Treasury, he's been in less of a position of power in Iran. And Mr. Larijani, as of today, is now announced to be the heir apparent when Ayatollah Khamenei is obliterated into multiple pieces in the coming days. Mr. Aragchi is no longer in the line of succession because they have suspect that he turned when he was in Beirut. And even if he didn't, just by going to Beirut with his wife and his children, he made a bad mistake. If you look like you're going to leave the country, you go with your wife, your children, and get somewhere near Ankara. That's how you show that maybe you've been turned.
So Khamenei has just picked the people who will lead in his absence in his hull once the war starts. And these are the order. And by the way, guys, remember how every time I mention Ali Larijani, I tell you how significant he is and how important he is. Even though he was removed from being allowed to run for president by Khamenei, he's still very, very, very much valued by Khamenei, right? So this is actually the order. Um, Ali Larijani is number one. If he's gone, Muhammad Baqir Ghalibaf is number two. So Ali Larijani is very significant. He's connected to IRGC, he's connected to the reformers, and he's connected to the Beit Rahbari, which means the office of the supreme leadership. So he's very flexible because he hasn't, so unlike many people, he hasn't completely fallen to one side. Like he has been within the Islamic Republic, he has managed to have a good network with all sides rather than completely going into one side. So given that he has masterfully managed to keep his connections with so many important people within the IRGC and the people around Khamenei and the reformers, he's kind of like the person that you want to have on your side if you need to make deals and basically manage things. And that's why Khamenei has turned him into the first in line when he goes into his bunker and is missing in action, because when he goes into his bunker he can't give orders. The reason why he can't give orders is because any form of communication will basically give away his whereabouts and then they could remove him, right? But this is also making it very difficult for Khamenei because every time he goes in a hole and he stops communicating, the idea of giving other people full command is also a practice for people getting rid of Khamenei. So Khamenei has to go in a bunker, give other people the complete ability to manage things autonomously without him there. But this for the people who are basically competing to take his place when he's gone, every time this happens, it's a practice for how to fill the power vacuum without Khamenei. And every time he does this, he becomes less relevant because people have already practiced how to do things without him, right? So Al-Rajin is number one. Ghalibaf is number two. He's the head of the parliament, but more importantly, he's like very connected to IRGC as well. And Shamkhani is number three. Shamkhani was the person that Israel was not successful in killing apparently last time because they bombed him and he didn't die. So, by the way, this to me suggests that all of these people are dead. This is also a death sentence because in the 12-day war, putting these people in leadership is also a death sentence because during the 12-day war, these were the people that Khamenei put in charge as to manage everything when he's in a bunker. And guess what? They're all dead. All of the people, Bagheri, Salami, Rashid, Shadmani, Hajizadeh, Kazemi, these were the people Khamenei picked to order everything and manage everything when he's hiding in his hole, and none of them survived. So picking these people as leaders when he's away is kind of like a kiss of death. Like, right? So one thing I wanted to mention about Arakshi is that he now posted something in response to Witkoff. So remember, Witkoff came and mentioned. Let me actually play it. Do I have it? Yeah, never mind. Okay, I should have kept it on. Witkoff came out and mentioned that President Trump is wondering why the hell the Islamic Republic is not capitulating. Let me just quickly play that for the sake of reference, and then it's a short video, anyways, right? Let me just see how Arakshi. No, that's not the one. It's the one. Oh, there we go. Found it. This one. Let me quickly. Don't worry, it's a very short video. Let's just do this one more time.
I know that we have red lines here from the U.S. How about over with Iran?
The president asked me that this morning, and I don't want to use the word frustrated. It's almost because he understands he's got plenty of alternatives. But it's curious. He's curious as to why they haven't, I don't want to use the word capitulated, but why they haven't capitulated. Why under this sort of pressure with the amount of sea power, naval power that we have over there, why they haven't come to us and said, we profess that we don't want a weapon, so here's what we're prepared to do. And yet it's hard to sort of get them to that place.
And the reason is because if they capitulate, then the hardliners themselves will basically topple the regime from the inside. They will lose support from their own followers if they do that. That's why they're not doing it. Yeah. But Arakshi, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, just posted this, and he came out and said, curious to know why we do not capitulate, because we are, all caps, Iranian. And honestly, I like this. You know what? I actually love this. Please do not capitulate. Please, 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 please. This is the perfect position for us. Please continue to resist, and hopefully, guys, imagine if they capitulated. It would have made it very difficult for the United States to justify this war. So the fact that they're not negotiating, the fact that they're resisting, means that regime change, war is coming, and regime change is a lot more likely. By the way, he's doing this under the direct command of Khamenei. I will guarantee it. I would bet money that if this was up to Arakshi, he would have capitulated. Any of the reformers, Rouhani, Khatami, Arakshi, Zarif, if they were in charge instead of Khamenei, they would have given the United States right now everything and anything they wanted, and even more. If United States asked for a few things, they were like, how about we add something on top of that just so that we can make you happy, because that's what the reformers would want to do, and that would mean that we would be having to deal with, I don't know, 100 more years of the Islamic Republic. So thank the gods that I don't believe in, that they do not actually, the reformers are not in charge. This Arakshi is doing this because of the direct command from Khamenei. And this is going to make regime change a lot more likely. So thank you, Arakshi. Hopefully you're one of the actually, I don't want him to die. I want to see him in jail. But I was going to wish him I was going to wish him to become a cutlet, but I need a few of them to. Actually, Arakshi needs to go because he's a reformer. But yeah. Oh, go on, Gary. You wanted to add something?
Yeah. So this, so in earlier discussions today regarding Gaza and the Board of Peace, and again, I'm an American. I'm very proud of it. I love my country. I love our citizens. But everybody, it's like Burger King. You got to have it your way, and you got to have it delivered to your house in 7 minutes, and it just doesn't happen that way. If you go back to World War II, okay, when Emperor Hirohito was the leader of Japan, he was not only a political leader, he was a divine leader. And it wasn't until he said to the kamikazes and all of the soldiers, lay your weapons down, after the second nuclear weapon was detonated, it wasn't happening. They were going to fight to the death until their religious leader said, lay your weapons down. We capitulate. That is not happening in Gaza. It's not happening in Lebanon for the same reason that it's not happening in Iran. There is a different psychology and there is a different belief system between the leaders of Iran and the leaders of the United States. They are not going to capitulate. I agree with you, Armin. They are going to be destroyed. And that's just the way it is. They are not going to say, you know what, guys, we were wrong and we're really sorry. And now we're going to be a democracy. Why don't you make us the 51st state of the United States? And I believe when Mr. Witkoff said about the president is wondering why won't they capitulate. I believe it. He's a New Yorker. In New York, you're either a Mets fan or a Yankee fan. The Yankees always expect the Mets to capitulate to them. Okay, that's just the way it is. But not in this area of the world where people hold these very, very strong beliefs that we will fight to the death. There's just no way around it.
All right. And by the way, Nara just posted the response to IRGC, which I want to share. By the way, Nara, I'm going to repost this while I'm live on air with Goldie. I'm not going to repost it now, but I'm going to repost it. So IRGC said, curious to know why we do not capitulate because we're Iranian. And Nara here in the chat posted this. Blasphemy. Why are you going against the leader of your revolution, Abbas? So he says, because this part where he says we are Iranian, Khomeini said this. Khomeini, the leader of the revolution, look at this. Islam has come to get rid of this useless. Patriots are useless to us. We need Muslims. We don't need patriots. We need Muslims. Okay. Islam is opposed to patriotism. What he actually says, this translation is wrong. What he actually says is even worse than what you're reading here. He's saying Islam is opposed to nationhood, to the concept of it, to basically the concept of a nation state. So it's not just against patriotism, it's against the concept of Iran altogether. So it's saying the meaning of, again, this is the wrong translation. The very meaning of nationhood is not patriotism. The very meaning of nationhood is to want the country and not Islam. That idiot abroad said, first I'm an Iranian. Second, first I'm an Iranian. Second, I'm a patriot. Yeah. Third, I'm a Muslim. This is not Islam. You're not even Muslim even by your third priority. You're not even a Muslim in the third order. Yeah. So when Arakchi comes out and says here that we do not capitulate because we're Iranian, and he says it in capital as if he's proud of it. He's part of the Islamic Republic, and the founder of the Islamic Republic was against saying this. You should have said because we are Muslim. That would have been in line
Yes.
with the narrative of Khomeini and the Islamic Republic ideology. You're pretending to be patriots when you're desperate. Every time you're not desperate, you put away your pretend fake patriotism and you do Islam, Islam, Islam. Every time you see the Islamic Republic officials are doing fake patriotism is because they're weak and desperate and they need the support of the Iranian people. As soon as they feel like they're secure again, they stop acting like patriots and they go back to Islamist rhetoric. Gary, you wanted to add something to that?
Yes, and I'm really glad that you juxtaposed that in there, Armin. Everybody on this call who is either American or Israeli or North American or European, when you think of a patriot is somebody who is courageous and is willing to sacrifice their country, their life for their country, for their nation and their fellow people. And Armin, you put it exactly right. Ayatollah Khomeini was a very learned scholar. He knew Muslim first, second, and third. There's no such thing as an Iranian republic being important to be a patriot for an Islamic Republic in Iran. You're a Muslim. End of story. You'll submit. You'll do exactly what I tell you to do. You'll do what the Quran says. You are not here to build communities and a nation on earth. That's completely different from what Americans, North Americans, and Europeans think of when you think of the word patriot. A patriot is willing to sacrifice his or her life for the building of their new and free nation. That's the difference. And that's why the only thing that will do this, will accomplish this change, is a military intervention. And I believe you will see it imminently.
Perfectly said. Thank you for that, Gary. BT?
Yes. So we have two people who wanted to comment on this, but I also want to say, Armin, while you're there, you better follow Nare on X. She posts
Oh, I
bangers.
do.
She will message them to me, and we're like dying laughing. She posts such good stuff on X. Please do yourself a favor and follow her. Okay.
I already follow her.
Oh, very good. Okay. Next to comment on this is Daniel Dome.
So, Witkoff, I'm not sure, but I guess he's like saying all Trump would want to say, but also is like disinformation machine. Like, this guy came from selling lands and houses, and he's like going to Russia, going to Oman, going to Israel, going there, going there, going there. Like, all the world, all what world needed is Witkoff, like the new Messiah. Like, I don't know, I just so don't love this person. And also when he was like presented, like when he was in Israel in the Knesset when Trump had his speech, like he had that smile where that smile just say that, oh, I'm screwed. Like, I think after Trump finishes his presidency, Witkoff is going to end up in jail. Just my thought on it.
No. Okay, we're getting too far with that. But it's okay. But okay, that's not going to happen. Going to jail. People are not going to get jail for, having their different policies than us. But anyways, let's go to the next person.
And Mr. Jeffrey also had something on this topic.
Jeffrey?
You mean with regards to Witkoff and what he said in regards to the nuclear program and strikes? That's the topic still, or no?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, that is. But with regards, we're
kind of
talking
went a
about
couple of
Witkoff.
different ways. Yeah.
Yeah,
Help
it
me-
went
help
a
focus.
couple of different ways. Yeah. So we were talking about the fact that Witkoff said that President Trump was curious for why they're not capitulating even with all of this military assets. I enjoyed it. I'll see if you guys think I'm a bad person. But go on, Jeffrey.
Yeah, I mean, that goes again to prospect theory and how the Mullah regime frames their gain of loss. I mean, first, how they frame their gain of loss, which is pseudo-theologically. And the other one is prospect theory, right? They know, just like the Chinese Communist Party, just like radicals, pro-Soviet wackadoodles out of St. Petersburg, they know their lives are directly tied to the life of the regime, right? It's like when Hamas, why doesn't Hamas sit there and give up all the hostages those fuckers stole and stuck under the damn tunnels? Because they know as soon as they do that, they're dead. They know that. They're evil as shit, and they know it. So this is also why, like, during some of the discussions, I'm not saying, who or where. Well, should it be a limited strike? Should it be a massive strike? Gary's not wrong. The colonel's not wrong. The amount of force that now surrounds surrounds the Mullah regime that's illegally occupied Iran since '79, is greater than the force that we in force projection than we used in the first Gulf War. There's a very specific reason that first, the reason why the target keeps moving, like the date, because it's a fluid environment and it changes, and so you have to engage in competitive adaptation, right? This kind of goes to what Daniel shared, again, his irritation. There's a reason, and it's right, because I can tell where Daniel's like framing it, right? He's thinking about all the horrible shit that certain insurgents did say at Donetsk airport in 2014 when they violated the Minsk Accords, Putin's buddies. And he wants justice. There's a very specific reason, that President Trump said to the brave Iranian protesters and resistance, document and save all the people that are doing the killing, right? And then you and Goldie, other people in the room that shall remain nameless, came up with strategies on just how to do that. When you had Pepito, but I always fuck up his name. Forgive me if he listens. Forgive me if I screwed your name up. When he was talking about the documentation, and there's issues regarding like Mullah regime poisoning the friggin' information and doing doxes and all and DDoSes and all this other shit they were doing. Here's why he said that. The regime attempts to survive chaos. It attempts to survive outrage spikes. It's attempting to survive scattered action or miscalculation. Here's what it cannot easily survive: disciplined exposure. This is why you, Tulsi, and Goldstein are so important, along with all of your assets carrying out the operational elements in response to President Trump's suggestions. That compounds over time. It cannot easily survive preserved evidence that travels across jurisdictions. It does not easily survive culminated sanctions or pressure. It doesn't easily survive structured oversight. The objective of all that, this is to what Gary was saying, is not catharsis. It's structural vulnerability for those who fucking ordered, enabled, coordinated, and concealed murder. Discipline preserves truth so that consequences becomes not speculative, not rhetorical, but fucking inevitable. And this goes out to Daniel. The Mullah regime knows very clearly, and kind of like, again, the colonel referenced this on people fleeing to Beirut and all the other stupid shit they're trying to do when they're roaching out. Justice is going to come to those evil fuckers no matter what, one way or another, whether it's at the state level or at the sub-state transnational level. Say like what happened to an asshole general in Moscow, Daniel, 2 months ago. That shit happens all over the place. They know that, which is also why they're never going to capitulate.